Good morning, afternoon, or evening class. For me, it's morning. This is the week 2 professor's video for Business 540, Business Law for Managers. I'm going to go over what we're going to be covering this week. Before I do that, I wanted to make a few comments on your discussion board questions and assignments. First of all, please take note of the deadlines in the syllabus. They are set forth fairly clearly. I believe it is Friday night at approximately midnight for the discussion board postings, and Sunday night at midnight for your assignments. If you are 1 day late, I subtract 10% off of your grade. If you're 2 days late, I subtract 20% off your grade. And if you're 3 days late, I subtract 30% off your grade. And after that, I will not accept any discussion board postings or assignments. You'll receive a 0. The only exception to that is if you have a very good excuse, and in general, you have to let me know before the deadline, not after the deadline. The fact that you're busy at work, that you're even have a mild cold, is not an excuse for not getting your assignments done on time. You can do these from home. Vacations, again, it's not an excuse. You can do them from abroad. You need to contact me in advance or as soon as possible afterwards if you want to get an extension, and I rarely grant them. In addition, this is a law class, so in most cases, I'm not primarily interested in your opinion. I'm interested in the law. I want you to tell me what the law is. You may say after you explain the law whether you agree or disagree with the law, if that is appropriate for the question or assignment involved. But simply saying that you don't think someone should be allowed to do something is not an adequate response in a law class. A lawyer doesn't get up in court and say, well, I think my client should win because he's a nice guy, and this is what I think the law should be. You have to explain what the law is and why it is appropriate for your client to win or for you to win as a business person. It is the law that we're concerned about, not your opinions. This week, we're going to be dealing with one of the most important areas of law for business people, which is the law of contracts. Contracts are something that we enter into all the time. They do not have to be written, except under specific circumstances that we will cover in week 3. But for the most part, or do we cover it this week? Anyway, for the most part, a contract that is going to be important to you as a business person is probably going to be in writing. And in order to have a contract, you need 4 things. The first is you need an offer. Then you need an acceptance. You need consideration. And you need to have no defenses to the formation of the contract. So an offer is someone who manifests an intent to enter into a contract with definite and certain terms communicated to an offeree. Definite and certain terms in general specify those terms that are critical to the formation of the contract. And we generally abbreviate it with an acronym called QTIPS. So if we're selling goods, say we're selling this coffee cup right here, a certain number of them, we need to know how many we're selling. That's the quantity. That's the Q in the QTIPS. The T is the time and place of delivery. We need to know where and when I'm getting the coffee cups. Are you delivering them to me next Saturday? And are you delivering them to me, or do I need to come to your store to pick them up? These are definite and certain terms that are important in order to create a contract. Identity of the offeree. We need to know who it is that I'm buying the coffee cups from, or who I'm making the contract with. So if I have a mere advertisement, that would not count as generally would not count as an offer because I'm making it in general to the public, not to a specific person. We need to have the price. How much am I going to pay for my coffee cups? And finally, I guess it's kind of subsumed, I need to know what it is that I'm buying. What type of coffee cup am I buying? Is it going to be the gold-plated coffee cup, the silver-plated coffee cup, the cheap coffee cup? That's the first step in the contract formation process. The second step is an acceptance. The person that I'm making the offer to needs to accept the offer. An acceptance is a manifestation of intent to enter into a contract, agreeing to all of those material, those definite and certain terms. And you have to communicate it back to me. You have to tell me that you accepted my offer. in a manner that's considered appropriate. Thirdly, we need consideration. Consideration means you need to be giving up something and they need to be giving up something. The law does not enforce gifts. If I merely promise to give you a gift, the law will not enforce that as a contract because it lacks consideration. Finally, there are some situations where even though we have offer, acceptance, and consideration, we will still not have a contract because the law has decided that it's not appropriate for that to be a contract. One of those is duress. If I hold a gun to your head and make you sign a contract, that contract will not be valid. If I use undue influence, if I am your lawyer or your minister or your priest, and I influence you improperly into signing a bad contract for you, that will also not count. If you're under the age of 18, you generally cannot enter into a contract with certain exceptions that are set forth in the textbook. Other areas, unconscionability. If the price is so out of proportion to the proper value of what you're buying, and it shocks the court's conscience, then that will also not be considered a contract. Fraud, if I deceive you into signing a contract, or if there's a mistake. We both have a mistake as to what it is that we're buying. And finally, there is the statute of frauds, which determines which determines which contracts need to be in writing. And those contracts are contracts with regards to marriage, contracts that cannot be completed within 1 year, contracts regarding land or an interest in land, contracts regarding executors, guarantees of other persons' loans, and the sale of goods for $500 or more. So this is what we're covering this week in Business 540. You'll need to go into much more detail in the textbook. And thanks very much. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at valfrid@yahoo.com. That's VALFRID @yahoo.com. Thanks very much.